So, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, we can confirm, is at the airport to personally greet President Moon Jae-in on the tarmac of this airport in...
And he's coming out along with his wife, Lee Sol-ju, the First Lady of North Korea.
It's amazing how quickly the crowd went from rather subdued to being in such high spirits, but that's to be expected.
They were very calm.
Yes. But this, I'm sure, will go into propaganda roles in the regime's state-run television broadcasts. It's another way Kim Jong-un can legitimize his control over the regime, inviting the leader of South Korea to his country. He's walking along, strolling along, looking very confident and comfortable. As Jung-Yi touched upon the first time, he looked slightly unnerved, unsure of himself. The first time he walked across the DMZ for their first summit back in April. But this is his city, this is his home country, so I'm sure he feels much more comfortable here. We're seeing people shake the flowers. It's kind of reminiscent of the scenes we saw when Nam Yu-han and Kim Dae-jung had their respective summits with then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Professor Song, looking at this, what's your first impressions?
Well, it's only fitting that he appears and be the first one to greet the President Moon Jae-in. It speaks to the importance of this meeting, and it speaks to his emphasis on optics of showing the two leaders standing together with a warm embrace, so to speak, and touching, starting this historic visit.
So just like his father in 2000, it seems Kim Jong-un decided to welcome the South Korean president who's coming to Pyongyang via the airport. Now they're hugging,
warm embrace. They do look genuinely pleased to see each other again. Last time they saw each other was back in May, so going on 4 months. Lee Sol-ju and the South Korean First Lady as well engaged in a warm conversation, smiles all round, very cordial, and everyone seems to be on good terms ahead of what is likely to be a big summit. But at least at this current time, it's smiles all round. We don't know what Kim Jong-un is thinking about, but it's nice to see that the two Koreas are at this point together where we can see these warm scenes between the leaders of the two Koreas.
And North Korean children delivering flower to the first couple.
This is the first time we've ever seen anything like this in 11 years, a South Korean leader coming to Pyongyang for an inter-Korean summit. The weather seems to have accommodated them as well. It seems like a lovely early autumn day there in Pyongyang. Lots of music going on, big smiles from Kim Jong-un's sister. They must have got to have known each other fairly well during the Pyeongyang Winter Olympics when she was over for several days to watch that.
And she actually invited President Moon over to Pyongyang. She was sent there as a special envoy and delivered Kim Jong-un's invitation to President Moon Jae-in to visit Pyongyang, and now that happened.
Okay, so Jung-Yi, we're seeing him, President Moon Jae-in, meet with the top brass in the regime and military leaders. We can go down the line there. That really is the who's who of the North Korean leadership. The trusted inner circle of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Right, so it seems he's been greeted, it seems he's been greeted by the top military officials, possibly the chief of the general staff of the North Korean army and the defense minister. And now the North Korean leader is greeting the South Korean officials, the foreign minister, defense minister, the land and transport minister, and the maritime affairs minister.
Yeah, we must remember that these officials have met each other before, the vast majority of them anyway, since the last meeting was only 4 and a bit months ago.
Right, so shaking hands with the National Intelligence Agency chief as well, and the cultural minister, and some of the top officials from the presidential office, such as the spokesperson and people in charge of the protocol.
Well, it seems as though everyone is being very gracious and good-natured, and let's listen in to see if we hear anything.
So it seems the two leaders are going to inspect the honor guards at the airport. They've been ready for the past, I don't know, nearly an hour.
Watched a bit of the honor guard. They're a little bit different to how it was in Pyeongyang back in April, but a very warm welcome. The red carpet has been rolled out for the South Korean leader, and it seems as though this meeting is off to a good start. Professor Song, do you think that President Moon Jae-in is absolutely aware of, down to the finest details, every detail about this trip? Can you see any way in which it hasn't been agreed that North Korea must not divert from the official schedule?
Remember that the details about the schedule has not been hammered out until the last minute, so I'm sure there are a lot of
but
scurrying around.
He won't want to be put into any embarrassing situations.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think he'll handle it well. If anything, they have developed this personal chemistry.
Yes.
So I think that if it comes to that, they'll wing it pretty well.
Right. Well, we saw in the Pyeongyang summit when they took that walk along the bridge and sat down on the bench, Jung-hee, and they had that long conversation for about 40 minutes. There is some talk that potentially something like that may happen again in Pyongyang. There is an area in Pyongyang, if I'm correct in saying, where the two leaders might look to get away from prying eyes and ears to have a one-on-one chat. They have plenty to talk about.
Right, so a potential place for that is the Baekgwon State Guest House. It's where the previous presidents who visited Pyongyang also stayed and had their summits with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. President Moon is expected to be staying there as well. And according to what we've been learning, that there is a spot within that guest house where, you know, there's a forest and the Taedonggang River also flows alongside the guest house, and there's a large lake. And there's also, you know, some, pathways where people could actually walk along. So, you know, this could be a spot that's pretty similar to the spot in the Panmunjom at the demilitarized zone that we saw on April 27th, where the two leaders could actually stop by and chat with each other for, I don't know, more than 30 minutes or nearly 40 minutes.
Professor Song, you look like you wanted to jump in there.
Well, I'm just looking at the picture of this top brass of these two countries at the same time. Not just the top leaders, but those people who will be hammering out the details. And certainly I'm seeing all the major participants are there. We didn't see it right now, but of course we saw the businessmen also. So not only the official delegate, but also the private sector as well. So potentially, they have all the major players in one place.
Well,
Right.
as journalists, we do try and depict the try and depict the chemistry between the leaders from the videos we see on screen, but it does genuinely seem as though both men feel comfortable in each other's company. Two men so different in many ways, but there are still plenty of smiles and a bit of laughter as well. Just a reminder, if you are joining us, you're watching the ongoing coverage we have here on South Korea's international broadcaster Arirang TV of the 2018 Inter-Korean Pyeongyang summit between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This is the third time they're meeting in 2018, and they are getting a magnificent response now. The crowd has really woken up, and they're going delirious seeing and meeting with President Moon Jae-in and of course their dear leader Kim Jong-un. Quite remarkable scenes, wouldn't you agree?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, true to his form, he's the people's president, and he didn't forget to shake hands with them.
Well,
people
we must remember that President Moon Jae-in is the son of North Korean refugees, so he has an affinity for the country and wants to do his best to bring peace to the region after several years of conservative, hardline administrations here in South Korea, where the relations between the two Koreas fell apart quite badly.
Right.
So, stunning turnaround.
Right. No matter what happens in his presidency, this is quite possibly the moment where his greatest legacy could be born.
Yeah, we're watching perhaps the keystone, the most symbolic moment of his presidency here. This is footage we're watching now that will live on for many, many years to come. It's quite extraordinary. Before his arrival, I was expecting a degree of cheering, but I actually am quite surprised by the level of joyous scenes we're witnessing here. Everyone's beaming, crying, laughing, having a wonderful time, shaking their flowers in the air. Jung-hee, and we're about to see President Moon Jae-in get into a motor vehicle, part of a motorcade, where he'll be whisked away into the center of Pyeongyang. This is an airport, of course, it won't be that close to the city center.
Are they in the same vehicle? We missed the scene. Are they in the same vehicle?
If someone can confirm whether they're in the same vehicle, you would imagine that they would be in the same vehicle. But
right. We're still not sure if they got into the same vehicle, but...
Well, I'm sure someone will confirm that to us shortly. It appears they're in a closed roofed car. We can't say whether that's convertible or anything, whether they're going to be lifting down the top as they cruise through the streets of Pyongyang whenever they start arriving there. And looks like President Moon Jae-in, one final wave to the crowd there as they say goodbye.
So the vehicle is now leaving the Pyeongyang Sunan International Airport, and it's heading towards the Baekgwawan State Guest House, which will be where the South Korean president will be staying. And after that, it's expected the South Korean officials will have a luncheon.
So this is the part of the process. So we have to see that even if we didn't get any concrete message from Kim Jong-un this time, but we have to remember that this is a part of process. So as long as our president is trying to persuade Kim Jong-un into the right direction, so Kim Jong-un can meet President Trump again, and if something good happens there, I think this summit is still very meaningful.
Right, but then I feel like that President Trump, he actually has a lot on stake right now with the midterm elections in the U.S. coming up and all. So he needs something to show his country that he is doing something as a peace mediator, I guess, that he's the one who will be able to end the nuclear war on the Korean Peninsula. But, you know, I guess things didn't really work out the way that he envisioned after that Singapore summit with Kim Jong-un. But I mean, I feel like after today's summit, depending on this week's summit between President Moon and Kim Jong-un, I feel like there are chances that President Trump might not meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, depending on what comes out of this week.
Even though it's very difficult for us to expect that there's a concrete message from Kim Jong-un about its nuclear weapons, but I'm almost sure that the Kim Jong-un is not going to say any negative things about the negotiation with the United States on its nuclear weapons. So when Secretary Pompeo canceled his most recent visit at the end of August, that there was a concern that North Korea might pull back from the dialogue with the United States. But with our special envoy's visit to Pyongyang, we confirmed that North Korea is still interested in having talks with the United States. That means that it's in North Korea's interest to continue to have dialogue with the United States. That means that North Korean leader is not going to say anything negative for the negotiation with the United States. So I think that even if we don't get any concrete positive message, but at the same time, we are not going to get the negative message from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Right, I kind of agree with that because, in a sense, we know that Moon's special envoy to North Korea, Chung Eui-yong, when he was in Pyongyang this month, right? He said that Mr. Kim reaffirmed his commitment to denuclearize. So, you know, in a sense, we're a little bit confused. I mean, where is this going, right? I mean, he's saying he's willing to denuclearize. He even mentioned a timeline. We heard from our special envoy that Mr. Kim plans to, you know, go ahead with this denuclearization process before Trump's first term ends, right? So this was the first time that North Korea has actually put forth a timeline as well, which kind of raised hopes that perhaps things will get back on track. But obviously, Mr. Moon, our president, has a lot on his shoulders, and a lot of eyes are on what's going to come out. Although you said that, Dr. Wu, you said that you don't expect anything concrete to come out this time, meaning that perhaps you're expecting something vague to come out than just specific detailed measures, I guess?
Since our special envoy briefed the media and the public that Chairman Kim Jong-un mentioned that he's willing to denuclearize by the end of President Trump's first term, which is the end of like 2020.
Right.
So maybe this time there's a possibility that Kim Jong-un publicly confirmed that message. So that's a good sign that North Korean leader mentioned the timeline of denuclearization by himself. But the remaining question is how to achieve it.
Okay.
So probably we are not going to hear about that how part, but since he already mentioned the 2020 through our special envoy already, I think there's a possibility that he can mention that timeline again with President Moon in this visit.
All right, Jiwon, kind of shifting away our focus a little bit. Can you tell us more about the schedule for others during the first round of the summit involving our first ladies, business members, special entourage?
Sure. So, like you said a while ago, the first round of summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in for this round of summit will begin later in the afternoon today at 3:30 and will last until about 5 p.m. And while that is happening, the first ladies of the two Koreas will be spending some time together.
Okay.
Now, they met for the first time back in April. That's when the Panmunjom Declaration was signed. But it wasn't long. It was only 3 hours, as it was right after the declaration was signed and during the whole dinner farewell event. And while that was also significant, their meeting in North Korea is also significant, as it is the first time the first ladies of the two Koreas will be meeting in the north. Now, former first ladies of South Korea also visited the north, namely our Lee Hee-ho, who is the wife to the late President Kim Dae-jung, and Kwon Yang-suk, who is the wife to the late President Roh Moo-yeon. They went to the north with their husbands in 2000 and 2007 respectively, but as Kim Jong-un's father Kim Jong-il never really disclosed his wife in public, the meeting between the first ladies never actually happened. And to briefly tell you about where these former first ladies went. They went to kindergarten in Pyeongyang, and they also met with female representatives and visited Korean Central History Museum and the Grand People's Study House. And Lee Hee-ho, First Lady Lee Hee-ho, even met her high school math teacher who was living in Pyeongyang.
Oh, so is that right?
Yes, that was something very interesting. But this time I think we're going to have a schedule that's even more interesting, because the South Korean First Lady will be accompanied by the North Korean First Lady. And we have a number of places that they will be visiting. One of them is the Ongnu Children's Hospital, which was built in 2013, and it caters specifically to children and nursing mothers. And it is one of the hospitals in the north with the best technology and the best facilities. And using those facilities, such as the web cameras, the doctors at the Ongnu Children's Hospital even teach doctors in other hospitals around North Korea. So it's one of the best hospitals North Korea has. And another place the two first ladies will be visiting is the Pyeongyang University of Dance and Music. Now, this is a significant, I think this place holds even more meaning to both first ladies, as they have a common denominator of music. Our the South Korean First Lady Kim Jong-suk, she majored in vocal music, and North Korean First Lady Lee Seol-ju, she was a singer before she met North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And even at the Panmunjom summit, when the two met, they shared this interest in music and cultural events, and actually said that they will work to boost cultural exchanges between the two Koreas. And so they will be visiting this Pyeongyang University of Dance and Music. And to tell you more about this place, it's a performing arts university founded in July 1972, as you can tell from its name. And it has departments such as national instrumental music, modern instrumental music, vocal music, and even dance and composition. And one funny thing about this university is that one of the renowned alumni of this university is the famous pianist Kim Cheol-eung, who is defected to the South in 2002 to have the freedom of playing a wider range of music. So it's one of the significant places that North Korea has.
Now, ever since we've been seeing a diplomatic thaw between the two Koreas, like you said, culture has played an important role between the two Koreas, and we've obviously been seeing many cultural exchanges between the two sides. And we know part of the delegation from South Korea includes some musicians, right?
Yes, those musicians include Ailey, a pop singer, a famous female singer in South Korea, Zico, a very hot and well-renowned rapper in South Korea, who also doubles as a idol group, one of the members of the idol group. And this comes as South Korea South Korea and North Korea already held a concert earlier in the year
in North Korea, right?
Yes. It was one. It was one where a lot of South Korean artists participated, including ballad singers and very and idol groups that
Red Velvet, I believe, too.
Yes. They had very exciting dance moves and.
Right, definitely culture plays an important role in that sense. But tell us more about, I guess, economic exchanges, Jiwon. I mean, what is this new economic map of the Korean Peninsula?
So the new economic map of the Korean Peninsula was unveiled last year in December, and it was when South Korea and North Korea still had frosty relations. So considering how President Moon even thought of opening a new economic map with North Korea back then is something that we should really think highly of, because he's actually achieving stuff that he's been planning for the two Koreas. And what this map of the Korean Peninsula seeks to do is to restore economic connections severed by national division, and to narrow the economic gap between South and North Korea, and form an economic community on the Korean Peninsula. And these include building 3 economic belts, such as the energy resource belt in the East Sea, the industry, logistics and distribution transportation belt in the West Sea, and the environment tourism belt at the demilitarized zone.
Okay. Now, I mean, this all sounds very encouraging, but at the same time, we go back to the sanctions on North Korea, right?
Yes. There's actually been a response from the State Department on these economic representatives visiting North Korea. According to what VOA reported earlier, they said when they asked the State Department to give a comment on how South Korean leader is taking these business leaders to the north, the State Department said that they expect all member states to fully implement UN sanctions, including sectoral goods banned under UN Security Council resolution, and that they expect all nations to take the responsibilities seriously to help and end North Korea's illegal nuclear and missile program. So this, some critics say that this might be a warning that the U.S. is telling South Korea that they shouldn't go too far with their economic exchanges with